What a beautiful ball. Now it's Cristiano Ronaldo with a chance maybe to seal it, and he has taken it. Lahm in all kinds of space. Lahm, Muller through Muller. Could be embarrassing. It's three. Tony Kroos. Olivier Giroud. Barkley's found Klein with a speedy burst, and that's terrific from Vardy. Oh, what a goal by Jamie Vardy.
Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast. It is hashtag TFHP Euros. I am your host Kris, and it's day 2 of the European Championships over in France, and first day of 3 matches. So we're on a time scale tonight. I'm joined by, he's back for a second helping. It's Ross. Good evening, Ross.
Good evening.
And I'm also joined by Drew from our regular panel for his first appearance of the Championships. Good evening, Drew.
Good evening, one and all.
I trust you are both well, and I'm trust you'll have plenty to offer us tonight. So let's jump straight into it then. We had the first game of the day was the 2 o'clock UK time kickoff between Albania and Switzerland. Drew, it was dubbed the kind of the Shaka Derby. It was also a little bit of needle in this one pre-game because of obviously all the connotations of Swiss players being Albanian and whatnot. What did you make of this? A 1-0 victory for Switzerland, an early goal from Fabian Schär, and Albania counted themselves slightly unlucky, but what did you make of the game?
Well, I mean, as we talked about in our WhatsApp group, I think it showed that Switzerland, I think they played pretty well overall, kind of what you'd expect, but as we said before, and Tom and even Ross agreed that this is why some people have raised questions over the likes of Haris Seferovic or Ahmed Mehdi. They should have won by more than one goal. And for me, I think that's why when you saw Breel Mbolo come on, he brought something different. He made that wonderful pass that should have been 2-0. But for me, I think this is the Swiss weakness. They work hard. I think their midfield is strong. They look pretty solid at the back, except for 1 or 2 occasions. But They do lack like a real goal threat with the 11 that has been going on. And I know that sometimes in your first match in a tournament you go with what you're familiar with, so that's why Mbolo is probably coming off as an impact sub. But I don't think either the players expected to get the goals did themselves any favors. And I think Mbolo for me he should start in their next match personally. But as for Albania, I thought they showed that they won't be a pushover. They created a few chances in their own right. Laura Kasana didn't, as the captain, didn't put his country in a position to really get 3 points, but they fought well.
I'll bring you in, Ross, because Drew's been taken away by the aliens. What did you make of the game, Ross? I mean, we talked briefly in our WhatsApp group earlier on. We were saying about the fact that if both teams or either team had a striker, this one could have been 4-4. I mean, it was just bizarre finishing from both sides. Were you particularly impressed with Switzerland, or was it a bit of a, I don't know, was it a bit of a kind of an odd game to watch almost because neither team really did that much given the circumstances?
Yeah, I wasn't impressed particularly with either of them as the game went on. Defensively, they both looked very good, and frankly, it's the way they should both be attacking this tournament because defensively they both were very good, solid units, especially an Albanian team that did go down to 10 men relatively early in the game. So defensively, they could take a lot of inspiration going forward, but offensively, it was just so disappointing because, like you say, really should have been 4-4. The fact that Albania was still in with a shout with the last kick of the game is ridiculous, and I completely agree with Drew that I think Mbolo, I mean, I'm not familiar with Mbolo, but when he came on, it's not even like he was overly impressive. He just seems to have a bit of something about him which you didn't see from many other players, especially some of the standout talents like Xhaka and Barami and Shaqiri, who I'm going to know and have known in the Premier League. And Mbolo came on and just looks better than any of them, just in terms of sheer quality and technique. So I've got to agree with Drew that Mbolo really should be starting the next game.
Yeah, I'm with you. He added sort of a bit of pace, a bit of power, and just a bit more direct. And I was really pleased with his performance when he came on. Drew, you back with us?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what is
that's
the problem. But,
we're going back to 1995. We're going to blame it on American Online. That's what we're going to blame it on. Dial up, damn it. I just wanted to ask you quickly on Haris Seferovic. Obviously, he's a player you would have seen quite a lot of Eintracht Frankfurt in the Bundesliga. He's a player that I must admit I like, but he does have a bit of a whiff of that guy that you think's going to be quite good, but then it doesn't quite work out. Do you think that? Is there too much pressure on him to be the number one with Mbola sort of sniffing behind, or do you think he just had a bit of an off day today?
I think this is what you get, though. This is how we performed in Brazil 2 years ago, and at Eintracht Frankfurt, he's not the most reliable of goal scorers. He's very in and out of matches, so I don't think it's the pressure from Mbola that's being applied. I think this is just he's more familiar with the setup. He's more experienced than Mbola, which is fine. But when it comes to out-and-out quality and comes to a more threatening player, Mbolo, I think, has the more overall package than Seferovic will bring. So for me, I think it's the wrong option.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. And as for the sort of the element of the physical side, Ross, did this at times remind you of some of the sort of the lower league, sort of League One, League Two games that you've seen? Was it is a little bit of blood and thunder at points, wasn't it?
Yeah, it did get a bit of rough and tumble in that game, which is understandable because A, it's a big game, and B, there's a slight rivalry, even if it's a fanciful rivalry between Albania and Switzerland. But I think Granit Xhaka set the tone with that tackle he threw in early on. It was two-footed. It wasn't the nicest, and I think that as Arsenal fans yourselves, that should probably be of concern to you if he's going to be playing like that in the Premier League, because he won't get away with it. But on the international stage, I think from what I've seen of the game so far, I think the referees are being very lenient with some of these players. But I think Albania Switzerland was the first game we've seen this tournament where they really, really had to try and grapple with these players to get it under control.
Yeah, it was certainly blood and thunder, and certainly good fun to watch. But nevertheless, it is a victory for Switzerland, and that is a good start for them, especially given that obviously France got off to a good start yesterday. So they both sit at the top of Group A. Not a lot more to be said for this game, other than Drew mentioned it, that the Loic Sana red card was not the best. And I thought Jan Sommer was pretty impressive in goal, actually, for Switzerland. Didn't have too much to do, but when he did it, he did it well, particularly that late save from, I think it was Gashi, I think it was.
Yes.
Super save that really was, and I thought he was pretty good throughout. So, yes, nevertheless, Switzerland then getting off to a good start. Let's move on then to our next game, because there's going to be plenty to talk about, I have a feeling, in the next two games. So, let's start with you, Ross. Wales. They came into the game with Slovakia. I think we both said on the pod last night we thought Slovakia would be the favourites for this game. We got it a bit wrong, didn't we? Wales running out 2-1 victors. How did you see it? What did you think of their performance?
Well, first off with Slovakia, I was disappointed with Slovakia because in the preview polls that we've been doing and talking to you guys and the rest of the Hipsters team on our WhatsApp group, Slovakia were billed to me as a team that I should be looking out for and one that could surprise a few people. And the Slovakia that turned up against Wales was really, really disappointing. I thought it was well below par. But the Welsh performance was fantastic, and I know we'll think of Gareth Bale's free kick for the first one, and Hal Robson-Kano's bit of a shinner for the winner. But I think the most important moment of that game came in the first 10 minutes when Ben Davies is sliding one off the line, because if that goes in from Hamzik, then the game changes completely. So I was very, very impressed with Wales. I think you could probably say the goals on another day wouldn't come that easily. I think for the Bale free kick, because he's so well known for putting it in the corner that he's nearest to from his free kicks, I think the goalkeeper has kind of preempted him and decided he's going to go for that corner, and then Bale's done the smart thing and put it back on his opposite side. Not great goalkeeping, but I don't think you're going to be able to get away with that against some other teams. And then the winner is, like I say, it's a bit of a shinner. It's gone through the legs of a defender. It's not the prettiest, so I do worry a little bit for Wales in the next few games. But otherwise, they look very impressive. And the one thing that impressed me most above all else with Wales was the interchange between the players, because they played 5 at the back, or they played 3 centre-backs and 2 wing-backs. And then as soon as any of those wing-backs or any of those centre-backs went forward, it was Dave Edwards dropped back into the back 3. And then if he wasn't there, then Joe Allen would drop back into the back 3. And I said it in our WhatsApp group, that the players of Slovakia must think they're playing against more than 11 men, because every time they turn around, they think they're going to be turning into Joe Allen, and suddenly there's Ben Davies there, or there's Ashley Williams there, because they just interchange so well. So I think there's a lot of positives for Wales there, but the quality of the goals is what concerns me more, because I'm not sure you're going to get those kinds of goals against other teams.
No, fair point. And Drew, what did you make of Slovakia in particular? Because they started the game, I thought they were quite sluggish to start with, but they gradually got themselves into it. Other than that early chance that Ross mentioned with the Davis clearance, which was superb. Slovakia, they seem to lose this game chasing to win it. They got their tails up when they equalised, but will they look back on this and think disappointing for them?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was one of the ones that said that I think the goalie should have been doing a little bit better on the Bale free kick. I mean, if you look at who the shot came in with the rotation of the ball, he hit it flush. So there wasn't really much side-to-side movement. So I think the keeper got it wrong. That's the first thing. I mean, after that, I also think it showed that they rely too heavily on Marek Hamzik, and I think that's a really big issue. He's their really only genuine source of creativity in that 11. And when he's on, they do well. When he's off, Wales did an excellent job of not giving him too much space to operate after maybe the first 15 minutes. And I think it showed, and I think that was a huge key for their performance.
Yeah, well said. And Ross, from your point of view, obviously the Gareth Bale goal was, I think it made quite a few people a lot of money because much like Olivier Giroud yesterday, a lot of people had him down as first scorer. That free kick was very decent, as you say, goalkeeping error to a degree. But the Welsh celebration in particular after that first goal, you can see just how together the team is with both sort of on and off the pitch, the fans as well. The atmosphere is absolutely fantastic. Do you get the feeling that if Wales can get a result against England, which we'll touch on in a minute, that they could just have a momentum thing that carries them through?
Yeah, of course. I think the one thing that Wales really have over the rest of the teams, not just in the group but in the tournament, is the fact that they shouldn't really be there. It's been so long since they've been at one of these tournaments. They shouldn't really be there because they haven't got the same kind of quality that other teams do. But they made it, and they still have the quality to turn over a few teams on their day. So the one thing they have to do is rally around each other. The one thing they have to show is this spirit that we've seen be so successful for Leicester this season as well. So it's a big plus. The other thing I would point out for Wales, actually, is they seemed quite tournament savvy. For a team that hasn't been in a tournament for, 50-odd years now, that when they were 2-1 up and there was a break on, I can't think of who it was, it might very well have been Ramsey was leading a breakaway, and instead of going for goal, he just kind of ran it off into a corner. And I was watching it downstairs with my mum and my sister, and they were both saying, well, why didn't you go for it? And I'm thinking, well, it's okay not to go for it. It's okay not to try and kill off this game, because all you needed to do at that point was to just kill it, just kill the time off. So I thought Wales were actually quite tournament savvy for a team that hasn't had that much experience. So there's definitely good signs for Wales, but I would still point to the quality of the goals they scored today as a bit of a concern for me personally.
A concern that is very much merited. Drew, Slovakia then, let's come back to them briefly. Is this a result that sort of causes damage beyond all repair, or do you think they've got enough to cause, obviously, England and Russia some problems? I could certainly see their style of play causing Russia problems, but England will touch on in a minute. I think there's probably a case to say they might cause us some trouble as well.
I think a lot of teams sort of stutter-stepped in the first match of a tournament. It's hard for it to come in all guns blazing. I don't think there was a single team that we've seen so far that really hit the ground running. You could probably say that maybe England was the best. I think their play in the first 45 was excellent and maybe the best so far, but it still wasn't anything that was world beating. So I expect them to improve, but I think they need to be a little bit more than just Hamzik. He's there. I think he was a leading goal scorer in qualifying as well. I think that they need a little bit more from other players than just him. If they're gonna, even get past Russia, who we're lucky to get a point today, and again, we'll go back to that later. But they do have the quality to get some points in the next two matches. They can hit people on the counterattack, and I think that should be their bread and butter. And then in the final two group stage matches. So again, I think they will improve, but this is a result that I think they weren't expecting, and I thought they would win as well, or at least get a draw. But it's not damning yet, but it didn't do them any favors for sure.
I have to say also that Weiss and Mack, I thought they looked very good in the second half as the game grew on. I'd like to think that they'll get better as the tournament goes on as well. So I know you're saying that Hamzik is the most creative player and they need to have more. I think Mack and Weiss could do it if you give them the time, but the danger is that they'll get shut down just like Wales shut them down today.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think Slovakia has to be a team to sort of play on the counter. I don't think they're not very, very strong at the back. So for me, if they
Well, since Drew's disappeared again, I'll also add in that the problem with the back is Skirtle. I mean, I don't know if you were going to touch on this in a minute, but the Skirtle challenge was a shocker. The fact he was still on, it was.
I was just going to ask you both. Yeah, just going to ask you both what you thought. I mean, by all means, both of you go for gold. I mean, how on earth the fifth official? I mean, how does he not see that basically elbow drop on Johnny Edwards? Johnny Edwards, was it?
Yes, Johnny Edwards, yeah.
Johnny Williams, sorry, Johnny Williams.
You're confusing me now. I love bloody Johnny Williams as well.
Different names, I tell you. But yeah, I mean, how did he miss that? I mean,
I think the thing you've got to say in his defence is well, not his per se, but there was a lot of tweets going on after the game, like, what's the point of the fifth official? The fifth official did get a very good penalty call right yesterday for the France game as well. So let's not down them all, but certainly that was a ridiculous decision to not give Wales his way, because he's clearly just body checked him. You know, as soon as I watched it, it was like he was taking a run up. He's tucking his elbow in before he's anywhere near the player. He's gone in to wipe him out, and the fact that the fifth official, who is standing 3 feet from him, decides that that's okay is mad. And the fact that even more that the referee has ignored it and just thought, that looks all right from here is mad as well, because he's clearly just charged him.
Yeah, and Drew, what did you make of that? The challenge late on as well. I mean, he eventually got booked, didn't he, for that tackle? But I mean, he could arguably have gone for that as well.
I think people joked on Twitter that he should have been arrested before the first half even ended. I mean, honestly, can we?
Oh, he's gone again. he's going to get so annoyed, isn't he? Ross, jump in quickly.
It's a shame, because that started to be a really good. I thought that was going to go really far with Drew then, but yeah.
He might be back actually. Are you back, Drew?
Yeah, I'm gonna punch something or someone.
Go on quickly. Go again on Skirtle on that.
Well, simply just, I'm not surprised that Skirtle acted in such a way. It's just the same way I wasn't surprised that Sana put himself into trouble as well.
Oh, somebody's got an issue with him today. I tell you, somebody's got it in for our Drew today. Whoever you are, stop it. It's annoying. Right, let's quickly talk just before we leave Wales behind. Russ, what do you think? We touched on the sort of the siege mentality, this whole thing of the fans getting together and getting right behind the country and whatnot. What do you think this will do for the belief of the players as much as anything else? Because as good as they are, they must know and they must hear the things that we talk about, the Bale influence and the one-man team element and that. Do you think that they'll actually look back on tonight and think, you know what, we can do something as a team if we stick together and fight hard as we did today?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to look at that result and take the positives from it, but you also can't deny the stats. The stat was that 83% of all the goals that Wales scored in qualifying were to do with Gareth Bale through goals or assists. The next nearest was Ibrahimovic of Sweden. He had 58%. You can't discount the Bale factor for Wales. But absolutely, the team spirit is what will carry them through. If Bale's having an off day, and they do, of course, have the potential. And even when Bale is having an off day, he can still cause problems, as you saw with the second goal. He can drag people away because people will want to monitor him. It will open up spaces for other players. So, plenty of positives to draw for Wales. But I don't think you can honestly say with any real validation that Wales aren't heavily reliant on Bale. I think it's just statistically proven at this point that a Bale-less Wales, if that's a thing, is just significantly weaker than when he's on.
A Bale-less Wales. There's a hashtag in there somewhere. I'm convinced. But okay, so I mean, overall, good result for Wales. So obviously, a win is a win, but they've got themselves on the scoreboard, and especially given the other result in tonight's game, which we'll come on to in a second, that's certainly going to benefit them, I think, moving forwards. And I'm pretty sure there'll be a lot of Welshmen having a jolly good evening tonight. So good luck to them. And as for Slovakia, I guess, like Drew was saying, it's a question of wait and see how they adjust to this defeat, because you've got to think they've got to take something from their next game, and we shall see how they get on. I think their next game is Russia, isn't it? So that's really good. Yes, Slovakia. Sorry,
Slovakia have got Russia next year. Slovakia, Russia.
So that's probably going to be a pretty vital game for both. Which leads us nicely actually on to our next game, which obviously is the one that I'm sure a lot of people will want us to talk about. So England 1, Russia 1. I'm going to stick with you for a minute, Ross, because Drew is going to put an axe in his computer and come back and hope it works. So what did you make then? 1-1 draw. We've got quite a lot to get through, so we'll start at the top and work our way down. So came into this with a lot of fanfare. There was a lot of talk that we would be all out attacking and it would be a different England. What did you make of the lineup, and what did you make of the sort of initial intent from England?
The lineup I wasn't all that surprised by. I thought it was quite a good lineup. The only issue I took with it was Rooney, really. Not so much that he was in it, because I've said all along that we should A, take him, and B, play him, but he has to play in midfield. So I'm not decrying him in the midfield position. It just seemed odd to me that in qualifying and in the friendlies he was never in midfield. We've been bleeding Jack Wilshere in all through the friendlies to get him tournament ready to make sure that he can start these kinds of games, and then you stick Rooney in there instead of him. So I wasn't against Rooney being there, because I think at the moment it's his best position for England. But I was a little disappointed to see Wilshere just disappear. I think the other thing for me was Sterling. I didn't exactly discredit Sterling, because he is a good player on his day, but I did question a little bit why he was there over other players. He's not been in the best form for Man City. He's really been off colour for most of the season, so it did seem a little strange to me that he started out on the wing. But yeah, we can go into Sterling's performance and Rooney's performances later, but they were the two that kind of threw me off at the start when I first saw the team sheets.
And what did you think of, obviously, going into the game? I think everyone expected Russia to be defensive, to be sort of sitting back and just trying to protect the ball and essentially keep it at 0-0 for as long as they could, which they did a pretty good job of for a while. But did you think England... Did you think there's just that cutting edge? I mean, they dominated for long periods, especially in that first half, and it just didn't work up front. Is there a reason for that, do you think?
It's tricky, because it could just be a case of a couple of strikers, a couple of attackers having an off night. It would have to be quite widespread if that was the answer. It could just be that, for as ineffectual as Russia were going forward, they could have just had the right ideas with some of the players, or it could have just been first game nerves, because England haven't won the opening game of the tournament for God knows how many years now. So it could be all kinds of reasons. But I thought, generally speaking, the attacking play was quite encouraging. You know, the first 45 minutes that England played was the best football I've seen England play for about 10 years since the 2006 World Cup. And even the game overall, I thought was England's best performance in about 10 years. And I'm sure we'll come on to the whole performance in a bit, but I thought it was very, very encouraging. But certainly you would have hoped, begged, prayed as an England fan that something would have gone in, and it just seemed like tonight it just wouldn't for some reason.
I think it's a very, very strange sort of. There's so much to debate here. We'll definitely break it down, but it seemed like a very sort of strange reaction to the whole game, because people were so happy for long periods, and then all of a sudden there's just this fallout of depression. But I guess that is the joys of being an England fan at times. Let's see if we can get Drew back in. Drew, hopefully we've put an axe in the computer. Hopefully you'll be all right now. What did you make of England from an outsider? Obviously, you're based in the US for people that are tuning in for the first time, so you get a completely not an objective point of view. You can just sit back and watch it. Do you think that the English fans overrate England, or do you think they were unlucky to not win the game tonight?
Maybe a bit of both, but I mean, this is a match they should have put away. And again, we were in our WhatsApp group, before pod, and a couple of us were saying that this is where Roy should have made different decisions. England were 1-0 up and they had the game by the scruff of the neck. He should have gone for 2-0. Why, when you're dominating a match, for the most part, sit back and hold a 1-0 when your performance suggests that you needed to get a second or a third goal and you deserved a second or a third goal? So for me, that's the question mark, and it shows that if England don't have the bravery to go and try to win a match in a major tournament, they should deserve to win a major tournament. And personally, they have to start better. They haven't won their first opening match in the last 10 European championships they've been in. And for me, that shows, whether it's cold feet or players not performing the way they should, or England just not being able to do enough to get the results they should. For me, this should have been a win, and the fact that it wasn't a clear-cut, 3 points should be a little bit worrying, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good point. And coming back to you again, Ross, with regards to Russia, just before we sort of drill down into England, because as I say, there is so much to bring up. What did you make of Russia? Because they've been decimated by injuries pre-tournament, losing Igor Denisov and Shagoyev in particular, the two that really stand out. But what did you make of them overall? I mean, do you think they deserved the point that they eventually got, or was it more of a, they're just sort of here to do their best to defend games like this?
No, I thought it was a smash and grab. I don't think they deserved the point at all. I think England should have been miles ahead, and the fact it was only 1-0 by the time we entered the 90th minute was more about England being poor up front than it was about Russia being good at the back. I certainly expected more from Russia, and I think, first half especially, I think Russia were a bit naive about England. I don't think they really took us seriously. I don't think they expected us to be so overzealous and to press as hard as we did and really go for the jugular. I don't think they were ready for it because they just couldn't contain it. They didn't know what to do. They weren't reacting very well to the movement or anything. And I also don't think they were really ready for Rooney in midfield, because Rooney had a really, really good first half, and it was mainly because no one had got near him. No one really seemed to monitor him. They were all kind of expecting him to make a run, and then he never did because he was instructed to sit deeper. So I think Russia were kind of caught out a bit. I think they were a bit naive. I mean, the injuries have obviously hurt them, and they would have played a different style. But I don't think they did very well with Zuber up front. I don't think they played to his strengths very well. So I personally felt a bit let down by Russia. I thought they'd be a bit more of a challenge than they actually were. But at the same time, I'm an England fan, so am I really going to complain that Russia didn't play that well? Probably not.
No. Fair, like it. And Drew, what did you? I picked out a player the one player I thought for Russia that was really good. I must admit. We'll touch on Akinfeev in a minute, but I thought Shatov was really good. And what's really funny in the UK, probably for the fear of getting dubbed for saying his name wrong, they were calling him Shatov, which I thought was hilarious because it is Shatov. However unfortunate that name is, but I thought he looked a really decent little player on the ball. Do you think he's a player they can get a bit more out of?
Well, I think he might have to be one of the more key players now that Jagoev isn't there. Smolov as well. I think he actually led the Russian league in goal scoring this past season. I think he had 20 and 27 or 28. So they're going to need a little bit more from players they may not have had expectations on now that Jagoev's not there. And I think in the performance today, they really missed him. Jagoev was the go-to number 10 for them, and he was the one who would pick up the ball and make things happen, and I think they missed that, which is why they tried to play run football for 90 minutes, and eventually paid off. But for the first 89 minutes plus, they really didn't have anything to offer. And I think a player of that quality, who I think Yanis Mahalik as well even tweeted that this is the worst Russian team he's ever seen at a Euro, because they don't have those technical players that you have seen. Year 2008, everyone was impressed by Arshavin and Yuri Zhirkov and those kind of players who were quick, direct, pick the ball up, make things happen. And this Russian team lacks players like that without Jagoev. So they have to look to someone different. So I think Shatov, Smolov, they might have to have something different, or else Kokorin and Juba aren't going to get the service that they can really make anything happen with.
Yeah, I thought I did think that Juba, he worked hard, but bless him, he didn't have much service. And Kokorin, I thought was very, very good. His work rate was superb. He absolutely sort of went off on one as far as sort of work rate and effort, and just that desire to just run into channels and pulling them apart at times was really, really good. But he can't do it on his own. So yes, let's move back into England territory then, Ross. What we had a sort of a friendly debate in our WhatsApp group, because when England went 1-0 up, we should probably talk about the goal. A very good free kick from Eric Dyer. Being slightly critical, I thought Akinfeev, who made a brilliant save earlier on, I have to say, could have done a bit better, I thought. But superb free kick from Eric Dyer after Kane had wasted several previously, and England were 1-0 up. Now, at that stage, they were 1 up, and I thought had Russia exactly where they wanted them. You felt that they did the right thing by sort of keeping the ball and sitting back, and I didn't. So what was your sort of cause for the defence on your side?
For me personally, it took 70-odd minutes for them to get one goal, so why not make sure you protect it? I don't see the rationale in bombing forward when it's taken so long to break Russia down. I think the issue you've got realistically, and I will agree with you that it was wrong to sit back under the circumstances, because if you're going to sit back, for me, you need good counter-attacking options. You need to be able to gather the ball, you need to be able to hold it, and then you need to be able to launch it over the top. You need someone to run on the end of it. And Kane is a good player, but he's not the quickest. Lallana is very good, but he, again, is not the quickest. He's not going to just be there all the time hanging off on someone's shoulder. For me, you need a Jamie Vardy or you need Daniel Sturridge, and for me, you need to take Sterling off if you're going to play the possession game. but for some reason we decided to take Rooney off earlier. Then we got rid of Sterling, and I just don't think we were set up properly to do the possession game. I think personally it was the right decision. I think if it comes off, then you sit back and you say, well, that's a very professional way to see out a game. But I just don't think that Roy made the substitutions to make that particular tactic viable.
Fair enough. And Drew, you wanted to come in on this one?
Oh no, I was just saying that I think it's a criticism that a lot of people levy in club football, where if a team's so dominant and they finally get that one goal, they want to see a second or a third, because so many times when you sit back, when you get that goal and you give the team any amount of opportunity to counterattack and maybe peg one back, so oftentimes we see that it actually happens. So for me, a better substitution would have been, you go 1-0 up, Russia are going to try and hit you back. They have no choice. So why not bring on someone like Vardy, who thrives in the counterattack, who adds extra pace, who's going to be more direct? And for me, I thought that Sterling, there were moments he played well, but there were also moments where he missed so many opportunities to pick his head up and notice that players were making runs for him. Instead he wants to run by the byline, go to the end line, and make something happen in there. But they needed something different, and I think Roy got it wrong. And I think he's fully to blame for the 1-1 draw. Personally, I think he got a lot of tactical choices wrong. He made some of the wrong substitutions. I don't know why he took Rooney off. Rooney was playing well. He was one of the only people who was creating, chances, controlling the tempo of the match. I think it just all went wrong at the end. I think it's something he has to change going forward if England are going to actually turn some heads finally in the tournament.
Yeah, I think it's. My sort of thought on it basically was I just felt that Russia were. I think if England had scored early, I think this would have been 3 or 4, because I thought Russia just didn't offer anything, and I just felt when England went 1-0 up, although it wasn't particularly long to go, I just would have liked to have seen them, as you both said. The Vardy option, I think I would have gone with. I would have sacrificed Kane. I certainly would have looked to have sacrificed Sterling, if not Kane. So, yeah, I just felt that they were there for the taking. And whilst I wouldn't have gone gung ho as an Arsenal fan, I can tell you that doesn't always work too well. But I would have just gone for the jugular, maybe for 5 minutes, and just tried to kill it off, because 2-0 the game is done, and unfortunately what happened, and we should just touch on that. Russ, any thoughts on the equalising goal? After the game, Joe Hart was asked whether it was sort of a game management issue. Chris Smalling has been picked apart by some England fans for not marking, but ultimately, was it just that one guy was bigger than the other, got a flick on, and these things happen?
Yeah, unfortunately, it is one of those ones that if it was the other way around, you'd be absolutely loving it, because it's typical end of the game. We need a goal, lump it in, and hope your big striker gets on the end of it. And I think the header was a bit of a mismatch. I can't think of who was marking the guy who got the header, but it was a complete mismatch in terms of defending, I should say. And it was just one of those goals. It will definitely hurt England fans, and it will feel like a defeat. The thing that I would say is that on the whole, I might have said this earlier, I've already forgotten, but I think of the 8 teams we've seen so far, I think England have been the best throughout the entire game. I think if you take that as a whole, I think England were very, very good tonight. And realistically speaking, you should feel quite optimistic about how England performed tonight, because not everyone is going to have that kind of last-ditch goal that Russia got tonight. The thing that did disappoint me after the game was Roy Hodgson saying that it was a moment of quality, when it wasn't. It was desperate League Two stuff, lump it long and hope someone heads it in, which is exactly what they ended up doing. So I think the real problem and the real thing we need to take away from this is that Roy Hodgson is saying some strange things and doing some strange things with his substitutions.
Yes, yeah, that was definitely a very odd thing to say after the game, has to be said. But nevertheless, it is more disappointment. I just want a one-word answer from both of you before I just touch on something quickly. England, do the English fans or English supporters, do they overrate England? Yes or no? Drew?
Yeah.
And Ross?
Yes, I think you got to say yes.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Full house. Okay, before we wrap up tonight, and we will be wrapping up shortly, we will bring you obviously a quick update on the games tomorrow. Just before we do that, just a very brief word from both of you. I don't want to get into too much of the detail because there's a lot going on at the moment, but there's been a lot of reports of violence today between English and Russian fans. There's reports that an Englishman has been killed tonight now. where do we stand on this? Ross, I'll start with you. I know we touched on it last night, but I mean, has it got to be zero tolerance policy from the French police now for all supporters in this circumstance?
Yeah, I think you've got to raise questions about the organisation from the French police as well. The fact there was only a handful of stewards between the Russian and the England fans in the stands at the stadium tonight, considering all the violence we've already seen this weekend, was so silly and so naive. I haven't seen the stories of potential deaths at the moment, but you know, there's no position to take other than that it's absolutely abhorrent. And I think UEFA have realistically got to start looking at Russia's hosting of the next World Cup, because if this is how they are in a European tournament, then questions have to be asked.
Yeah, the talk. There's a tweet that somebody I know actually quite well, Andrew, has put out. Basically, there's a tweet saying the entire Marseille metro is down. Ambulances and firefighters at Bell Station. Locals say Englishman is dead. So obviously it's all speculation at this point. Hopefully that's not the case. But and Drew, as a man who lives in a country that has seen, you know, some atrocities over the past few years with sort of more a terrorism side of things, it has to be said. But do you think that supporters, given the fact that France has been victim of terrorist attacks, do you think supporters have got a duty to be just a bit more bloody sensible? You know, whatever you think of rivalry, you know, this could be so serious if something terrorist organised kicks off while this is going on and people are fighting amongst each other. It could be absolute carnage, couldn't it?
I think it could, but also people aren't even taking into consideration that the fact that causing like the ruckus that they have been could be that cue for, God forbid, something to happen for a terrorist group to say, you know what, this is the perfect time for us to do something because everyone's distracted with what's going on with the fan violence. It takes away perhaps some police presence in other areas, maybe that where they had concerns. Things like that for me, as a fan of the sport, you know, and the way I look at other fans who are representing their countries, you know, the clubs they support, who are gone to the tournament, it's disappointing to see that this is how they're conducting themselves. For me, if you go to a Euro like that, you know, it should be about going because you're passionate about the sport, you want to support your country, but it should be about to go and literally brawl in the street for, 3 days now, or 2 days now. And for me, it's disappointing all across the board from both English and Russian fans, and I think I agree that now you have to kind of look at it and say, you know, should Russia be hosting the next World Cup? You have to also criticize, you know, the French police, you know, not only, as Ross pointed out, but there are minimal stewards protecting the separation between Russian and English fans. But once everything happened post 90 minutes, it took forever for French police to actually sort things out after it happened. So you have to question that as well. So a lot of questions just across the board from top to bottom.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I totally agree. I think that's the biggest worry for me, on top of what's going on, is what it could potentially lead to from other third parties looking to get involved in other forms of violence. And I just hope it doesn't get any worse. And obviously we wish everyone safety, friend or foe, I think it's fair to say, from this podcast. So we'll leave that side of things there. So before we go, let's have a very, very quick look at what we've got tomorrow. Drew, Turkey, Croatia is the first game of the day. Any brief predictions on that one?
I don't know. I think either side could take it. Croatia has been disappointing in recent tournaments. It's one of those issues where they have so much quality yet it doesn't mesh well, you know, as the final product. And as for Turkey, they're going to be heavily relying on a few key people, almost kind of similar to Slovakia, where they rely on Hamzik a lot. Turkey's going to be relying on Arda Turan and Hakan Çalhanoğlu a lot. So I don't know. I actually might probably go ahead and say I think it's going to be a draw. But I think it'll be entertaining. I think both teams have a lot of attacking talent, especially Croatia. But the question is who's going to get the goals for either side. So we'll see.
Interesting. And I have a feeling where Ross might go with this, but Poland, Northern Ireland, Ross, is this a Lewandowski field day, or could we see a shock on the cards?
I'd like it to be a Lewandowski field day because he's in my fantasy football team, which is absolutely tanking at the moment, and I've got a bet on him for being the top scorer, so I'd love to see it. But as someone covering the UK stuff, I would like to see a bit of bottle from Northern Ireland. I would like to see them maybe get a goal or nick a point, but I can't see past Poland, and I do fear that it could be more than one.
I think I'm inclined to agree with you on that one. And finally, Drew, you've got the Germans are coming into town against Ukraine. You'll be back with us tomorrow to discuss how they got on. Routine for Germany or a stuttering start? What do you reckon?
I don't know. There's going to be the question for me tomorrow is going to be, who starts at right back, and if Kevin Konoplyanka will exploit that. We see how good he. Tom will speak for hours about how good he is. And how creative he can be on that left-hand side. So my question is, is Thomas Müller going to rise to the occasion and try to get the goals, or is Jurgen Loh going to go with Mario Gomez as center forward and put Müller on the right? My question will be how Germany sets up tactically and how they respond. So I think that'll dictate the match 100%. And I feel like the result will just be solely based on of what approach he goes with and certain key areas who he places in the 11. And for me, I think when I look at the team sheet, I think I'll know for me personally if they'll go out and it'll be a confident performance or if they're going to stutter. So I think they're capable of both. But as we always know, Germany always shows up in tournaments, especially in Euros. So they may only get nick a 1-0, but you have to expect them to get stronger throughout the tournament for sure.
Yeah, I'm quite looking forward to tomorrow's games. Actually, all of them have, for very differing reasons, got quite a bit of appeal about them. So, looking forward to that. Now, before we go, Drew, you may or may not have heard. We've from yesterday's episode, we're going to do a sort of a twist on the Hipster's Choice after every podcast. And what I've decided is I'm going to ask both of my guests on every podcast for their Hipster's Choice of the day. So basically, it's the player that impressed you the most over the course of the day's games. And if there is a dead heat between the two, i.e. you both pick a different player, I will adjudicate. However, if you both pick the same, obviously he's our hipster of the day, and I'm going to make a list of all of these names, and hopefully we're going to do them as full hipsters choices next season. What an idea, huh? So let's start with Ross. Who is your hipster's choice of the day?
My hipster's choice of the day, Chris, is Kris Gunter of Wales.
Oh, I did not see that coming. I have a feeling Drew's will not be the same, so I'm going to have to be adjudicating here. Drew, who's your hipster's choice of the day?
It pains me to do it, but I'm actually going to go with Eric Dyer. I thought he was the standout performer, not just in the match, but he brought something England missed. And if you look at his performance statistically, he was brilliant. So I'd go for him.
Well,
so we know who you're going with.
I was going to say it's a toughie, but do you know what? It genuinely isn't to do with the fact that he's not a Spurs player. But yes, I'm going to go with Ross because that is completely left field, I have to say. And if I'd have had my choice, it wouldn't have been from either of the games, I have to say. So I'm going to go with Ross on this one, Drew, I'm afraid. So better luck tomorrow. But a nod to Eric Dyer, who did perform very well. But I'm going to go with Kris Gunter. So he is today's hipster's choice. Super. Right. Okay. That's it for day 2 then. Thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate these pods are a little bit shorter, a bit more snappy. I'm sure all three of us could talk for hours on these games, but we want to keep these nice and short and punchy so that it gives everyone something to listen to on their commute the next morning, or indeed when they're laying in bed at night. So hopefully you enjoy it. Very quick piece of admin. If you're having trouble with iTunes, there was a little bit of a problem with the subscription last night with the feed for some reason. If you go to the iTunes store, our episode should be uploading. You just have to kind of resubscribe. I don't know why it is. It's far too technical for my brain. I let John deal with all that side of things. But just go to that. If not, if you really can't get it through iTunes, do try Stitcher, YouTube, or just go to our website where we'll post the direct links. So keep it up. Thank you very much. Right. Thank you very much for everyone who's listened to us tonight. Thank you very much for the subscribers. And, of course, all of you lovely people that joined the Fantasy League. We will be back tomorrow to cover the 3 games we've just mentioned. All that is remained to be said for tonight is thank you very much to Drew and to Ross for joining me.
Pleasure as ever.
And we will be back in your ears tomorrow. Until then, keep your satchel clean and your pipe stoked. And if you're in France, for goodness sake, stay safe. We've been the Football Hipsters, and we'll speak to you tomorrow.
Now it drops for Fabregas, who looks for Iniesta, who's onside! Spain score! That's on. Rodriguez, a match winner. Is this the moment? It is! Divock Origi! There, and now Keller. And they now have the breakthrough. Fail. To great effort! Oh my word, what a goal!